Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. So today's video is going to be I'm going to answer some frequently asked questions about embryo adoption. So a couple weeks ago we shared a video on our channel letting you guys know that we had done an embryo adoption, and through that is how we conceived our twin girls. I knew that it wasn't super common and that a lot of people hadn't heard of it. There were even nurses and stuff at our doctor's office who'd never heard of it. But I was honestly a little bit surprised by how many people had never heard that this was an option or knew that it existed. And there were a lot of questions, and some of them were, totally understandable. People were confused about certain things and stuff. So basically what I wanted to do was just take a few minutes to sit down and kind of go through some of the questions that you guys had on that video and try to answer the ones that I can answer and that I'm comfortable answering, just for a little clarity and to help everybody kind of understand what embryo adoption is. And if someone stumbles across this or looking into embryo adoption themselves, then they can get a little bit more information. One question I got was, do we plan on telling the babies from the very beginning that they're not our biological children, or that they were adopted as embryos? Would we tell them at all, and at what age? That sort of thing. Studies have shown for a really long time that the earlier you tell children, the more normal that you make it for them, the better it is in the long run. This whole idea of suddenly at 12 years old finding out that you're adopted is not a good thing. It's not healthy for children. And so just like with our other 3 children that are adopted, we will absolutely talk about it from the beginning. It is a little different. It's definitely a different scenario than their adoptions were. There are some children's books. I will leave links down to those below. There's a few children's books on Amazon. This sort of thing is very common. People using donors, couples using donor sperm, couples using donor eggs. So there is actually a lot of resources and information out there for children to help them kind of make sense of it and understand it, because it's not a traditional adoption situation where you were carried in the womb of your birth mother. She gave birth to you, and for any number of reasons, you might have been with her for some time and then separated and that kind of thing. Because I'm carrying them, I'm giving birth to them, nursing them. I, even in their little tiny baby brains, will be the only mother that they've ever known. So it's more about biology and DNA than it is about trauma, loss, and some of those other things that are more related to a traditional adoption. Hopefully that makes sense. So yes, we will be telling them, we'll talk about it in ways that make sense at age appropriate times for them. The other question that I got a lot, which was really kind of surprising to me, was people kept asking if they're biologically my husband's and not mine, or so we're going to do like a 2-second biology lesson. So when you adopt an embryo is already has the sperm and the egg, and they are together. That is an embryo. You can use donor eggs or donor sperm, but when it's already done and completed, that is what it creates the embryo. So when we adopted these 2 embryos, they do not have either one of our genetics or DNA, if that makes sense. They were already created. The other question that we have gotten a lot is whether or not the two girls are biologically related. And yes, they are. They are biological sisters. And I've even had some people say, well, then they're not really twins. All fraternal twins are just 2 separate babies born at the same time. Identical twins are the only ones that are, carbon copies of each other born at the same time. Otherwise, fraternal twins is essentially like any siblings being born at the same time. Does that make sense? Yes, they are biologically sisters, and they are actually twins because they are being born at the same time. The other question we get a lot is about the biological parents. Do they get to choose who adopts their embryos? That kind of thing. And again, this is a very, it depends on where, the clinic that you're using, and definitely a case-by-case basis, because as a couple who is going to place their embryos, for adoption, you can choose to be a part of the process of picking the family that adopts your embryos. You absolutely can. Or you can anonymously donate them, and then the clinic or, whatever the program matches, your embryos with a couple, and you're not a part of that decision-making process, because some people don't want to be. Some people don't, they don't want to destroy them, but they don't want to They don't want to be a part of a process of picking a family and doing all of that. They just want to donate them. The amount of information given is sometimes very basic, which is just like hair color, eye color, blood type, that kind of thing, and you see no photos. And then there's ones where they send you photos and pictures of their other children that they've had, and they want to keep in touch, you know, meet at some point so the kids can meet. I mean, the level of openness varies greatly. There are varying levels of communication between the families, ranging from absolutely nothing to, you know, close contact. We have also been getting a lot of questions about these two girls specifically and what ethnicity is and all of that. Just like with our other adoptions, we were very open to, you know, whatever. We did not really care. And if you look at the blog post that I wrote, you know, to go along with sharing about our embryo adoption, I embedded a video in that from national embryo adoption clinics, and it's a story of a couple that adopted, they're a Caucasian couple, and they adopted 2 African American embryos and transferred both of them, and they both took and one of them split, so they actually ended up giving birth to triplets. So this tiny little Caucasian lady gave birth to 3 beautiful little African American girls. So you don't have to adopt the same ethnicity as you are. That's absolutely possible. In our case, like I said, we were really open to whatever, but the match that worked out for us, the embryos are Caucasian. And while, you know, genetics are a very interesting thing, so I can't tell you what they're going to look like. We don't know what they're going to look like. We do know that given what their genetic parents' features and hair and eye color and everything are, you know, had we not told you guys that they were adopted as embryos, you probably would never know. They'll probably look a lot like Kennedy, which is just, you know, like I said, the way that the cards fell for these 2 specific embryos that we adopted. And I've also read some comments in that video from some of you guys who have studied genetics and things, and I'm not going to get super technical or into it or anything. You can do your research on your own, but there's also some really interesting research out there that talks about how, like for myself, my blood is flowing through their veins, and, you know, flowing through their bodies, and it's the source that's growing them, and that my blood actually turns on and off certain parts of their DNA. That's obviously going to look different depending on who is growing you. So there's definitely some, you know, really uniqueness to this, like I said, in that it's not like a traditional adoption. It's pretty amazing that you get to have the bond of pregnancy and birth and breastfeeding if you choose, you know, with these babies. And then of course we got lots of questions about, you know, can you choose gender? Can you do that kind of thing? When you do IVF, and when you have, you know, embryos created, there is a lot of testing that is offered to couples. PGS testing, PGD testing, and there's various reasons that couples do that. Again, some couples go through the IVF process because they are carriers for genetic diseases and things that they don't want to pass down. You know, there's lots of reasons that couples do that kind of testing, but some of the things it can tell you are gender. In the case of these 2 specific embryos that we adopted, there was no testing done on them at all, which again was part of the reason we were pretty surprised that they both stuck, because, you know, we really had no idea, genetically speaking, if they were viable or, you know, what the situation was exactly for them. And we did not know gender. There was obviously no testing done, so we did not know genders. We did not know the gender until, you know, later when we had our gender scan. Okay, you guys, so that is everything. I hope that answers all of your questions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again soon.